Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Andrew the Collector here, once again with the top 5 meta, rogue, and budget lists. As always, we're going to be dividing these up into 3 different videos, but I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. Not only am I going to be including post Supreme Darkness, but I'm also going to be doing it post Blueeyes structure deck that's coming out in just a matter of weeks. Mainly because it comes out in just a matter of weeks, and it didn't really make sense to do 2 separate segments of videos this close together, at least when we all know that the structure deck is just right around the corner. But yeah, I figured it might as well conglomerate this into the winter format, I guess I should say. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into the top 5 meta decks for the winter format. Now, starting off at number 5, this one is kind of a little bit far-fetched. I'm putting Chron here, mainly because the deck, on its own, it can actually have a lot of gas behind it. It is an incredibly good synchro build. You can have so many different utility cards with it. And it's basically just a deck that Eric the Cyborg brought to my attention when I was just coming up with this list, and I gave it some thought, and there is actually some merit behind it. It's just a matter of finding the right build and finding the right matchup, but we'll have to see once the set officially releases this weekend to see where Chron truly lies within the meta format, but I have great hopes for this deck, and we might see it from time to time. Now, going to number 4, this one is going to be Blueeyes, specifically Blueeyes Primite. I have been playtesting this deck online, mainly because it has been dominating the format in the OCG ever since their recent ban list got hit. But yeah, this deck is pretty resilient, and it can play through a lot of stuff. The only caveat is that it does have a few pitfalls here and there to where it can fall by the wayside. So, just kind of look out for those. But, the Primite engine just really helps ramp up this deck to new heights. But I'm putting it at number 4 because I feel like we don't really know how it's going to affect our format specifically. But it definitely is going to be one of the top meta contenders for sure. Now, going to number 3, one that I think deserves a little bit more deserving of a higher spot than Blueeyes, at least currently, and that's going to be the Mitsurugi Ogdoadic deck. This deck is a lot of fun. Not only is it a lot of fun to play, it's a lot of fun to play against. Now, in terms of representation, I don't think we're going to see it very often, but when we do see it, it's going to be a heck of a deck to really, sink your teeth into and really go up against. But yeah, definitely watch out for this deck. It's a ritual-based deck, so obviously, there are times where you can incorporate the Dogmatica engine into it, as well as any, reptile engine cards such as Snake Rain. Snake Rain is still a hell of a card. But yeah, definitely keep a lookout for this one because it's definitely on the radar for most meta players. Now, going to number 2, these next 2 spots really shouldn't surprise anyone, but the placement of them is for a certain reason. The second place is going to go to Malice, mainly because Malice is such a resilient deck. It's a link-based deck and it's a vanish-based deck, so obviously Dimension Shifter is a hell of a card. But this deck, when I went up against it in the online regional that I did with Tempeh, this deck has so much gas behind it. It's so resilient, it has so many utility options, especially with the Cyberse engine. But yeah, it's definitely a deck that you cannot slack on. You definitely need to prepare for it. But for the number 1 spot, I'm putting Ryel here. It's obvious. But the reason why Ryel gets a ramp up over Malice is because you can have so many different varieties with it. You can have the Fiendsmith engine, you can have Nankonko with it. There's so many different variants that you can do with this deck as long as you set those up before you go into the rank 4 or level 4 lock that the deck locks you into. But yeah, you may be surprised to not see Fiendsmith decks on this list, but I was talking with Eric the other day, and we decided that things that will be considered dex or engine is based on the amount of cards in that deck are. Like for instance, the Fiendsmith is going to be considered engine in most of these builds on this list, mainly because you barely run over 10 cards in the archetype. What we decided that would be considered quote unquote dex is if the archetype has cards in the deck that range between 15 plus. So if a deck has 15 plus cards of any archetype, it's going to be considered that specific type of deck. And engines can range between 9, 10, maybe 13, which Fiendsmith definitely falls into that category. So it doesn't have a distinct spot on this list like 1, 2, or 3, but definitely it is considered to be engines in some of these builds, especially with Ryel, which is why Ryel is so good right now because of the Fiendsmith engine. But yeah, that is the top 5 meta decks. Hope you guys enjoy. Please like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell down below for notifications. And stay tuned for our next 2 lists coming shortly.